Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm Preston M. Smith, at PMS Artwork everywhere on internet land and socials. I want to thank you for landing on this podcast. Whether you're a professional artist, just getting started in the art world, a collector of art, or just consider yourself a creative person, this podcast has something for you. I like to think of it as a fun way to rant and talk to other creative people about living the life of an artist, surviving and getting ahead in the art world, and enjoying your life. But most importantly, not waiting until you're dead to make it happen. All right, let's get started.
Your summer starts now with Memorial Day deals at the Home Depot. It's time to fire up summer cookouts with the Next Grill 4-burner gas grill on special buy for only $199. And entertain all season with the Hampton Bay West Grove 7-piece outdoor dining set for only $499. This Memorial Day, get low prices guaranteed at the Home Depot. While supplies last, price and valid May 14th through May 27th. U.S. only, exclusions apply. See homedepot.com/price match for details.
Expedia and Visit Scotland invite you to come experience the beauty that awaits in Scotland. The sweep of wild coastlines, quiet lochs, and untamed landscapes. Fresh cuisine that feels rooted in the land. Come experience the kind of stillness that stays with you long after you leave. Plan your Scottish escape today at expedia.com/Visit Scotland.
What? Wait, do it now? Okay. Saddle up, sucker!
Yeah! All right. Get ready for the matchup.
It is a crazy world. As an artist, as a fine artist, there's a lot of overlapping, but I would almost argue it's even more cutthroat and you get rejected even more than you do as an artist. What was that process like for you? How long did it take you of getting rejected before you first landed your big gigs?
Well, I mean, it's a constant process of rejection.
Right.
It's still a ton of rejection. Yeah, you know this. But, weirdly, I started out the gate getting close to a lot of things. I don't think that's that uncommon. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but there's like a beginner's luck, it feels like, or maybe an ignorant, maybe it's because here's an idea. It's because the rejection hadn't gotten to me yet. And so there was this beautiful ignorance.
Yes.
And walking into rooms without all that baggage. I bet you that's some part of it. Because I got real close on a ABC Family show. I got real close on Shameless, actually, on a big part. I didn't get it, but it was a really cool, close call. Mm-hmm. And then I got my Gary Unmarried co-star.
Nice. There you go.
And then I started having a lot of rejection. But at the same time, I was still like a senior in college trying to get my degree. So I think that helped a lot.
Definitely taking the focus away. You're like, well, I'm still going to school. I've got school to focus on. That takes away some of the pressure, maybe.
100%. I think the first time I really felt the rejection was right after graduation. So summer of 2010, when I had a job, I had like a day job, but it wasn't that many hours yet. Mm-hmm. And it was lonely. A lot of people had left and I didn't have much money and it was scary. And I remember my parents being like, why don't you come home for a weekend? I came home for July 4th. And I was just like, I was a shell of my former self.
Yeah.
And then Final Destination 5 came along, but not to take anything away from my success, quote unquote, there. I think I got it because of they needed a gymnast who could act. And that's a pretty hard thing to find.
I was going to ask you about that. Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I got it because of any any work I had done dealing with the rejection or any sort of, I think I got it because it was a really lucky find. And I do think there was a confidence knowing that I was a gymnast.
Yeah.
And knowing that like I was exactly what you need. So I walked in with a little more swagger where I probably wasn't walking into other rooms that way.
Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, and she can act. What a bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what happened in that audition that never happened, hasn't happened since, is they only had 2 pages for this one character. So I did the 2 pages, and in the audition, she goes, okay, now read the other character. That this scene was a 2-hander. It was like me and one other character.
Yeah.
And so she literally had me read the other character's lines. And it weirdly, I was fine with it. It didn't like flummox me, but it
didn't throw you.
But I remember being like, that's odd. And somehow I was able to handle it. It hasn't happened since.
Huh.
It's interesting.
That's interesting. Well, I've talked about that on the podcast quite a bit, of even going back to the acting days, because I talk about rejection a lot, how to deal with rejection. And there were times when I would go into auditions and I was hungover, or I just didn't give a shit, and it was like, those were the times that I booked it. And I booked it like without a callback sometimes. And it was like, there was this intangible, like, oh, he doesn't care. We want that person. You know what I mean? It's not, and to connect the dots here, maybe with you graduating from college and having to get the job, getting the day job, and then going like, oh, wow, now I have to kind of make a living doing this. Now this is for real. Then that set in, and maybe that started to get in the way a little bit of your swagger when you went into some auditions. I don't know. I'm just projecting my own thing onto you.
No, I think that's so accurate, and that sort of stayed with me. For better or for worse, if I don't have a full life, whatever that means, if acting becomes too important,
yes,
I think it's possible that the work suffers. I'm sure of it. And and as Mike Collins could tell you, I don't do as well. I mean, I really have to have, whether that's a job, whether it's my kid, whether it's both, I have to have a full life, or else it's almost like I need to keep the acting fun. And a hobby is not the right word, but it can't be everything for me. And not everyone's like that, but I think that's just how it is for me.
For anybody listening who's a visual artist and not a writer, this kind of also bridges the gap between the literary field and the visual arts. Like, you can license your work out to writers. That's available to you. But I love this collaboration.
Digital rights, licensing. I think that is something that any artist in the painting field, particularly a visual, could be a sculptor. I agree with you that that's a mechanism for a revenue stream. Sure. And
I also love, though, that there's this overlap with all of the arts and different forms of creativity. And I know so many people I've had on here. You're the first actual writer. I guess we should say you're listening to Lee Hudspeth. He's a professional writer. And we're talking about his book, Incandescent Visions, right now. We're going to get into a bunch of other stuff. But I've had a lot of artists in here who've worn multiple hats, they are a visual artist primarily, but they've been in bands, they play music, they've written some books, they've done some children's books, things like that. So it's one of those things where there is an overlap with creativity, and we should never be kind of trying to cap that and just don't stay in your lane. Do whatever speaks to you.
Exactly. And, we've talked, I know I'm just going to bounce from topic to topic, so I'll let you steer me back onto the path. But we've talked about this.
There's no steering wheel here.
Sometimes getting caught in a rut and doing the same thing. It might be online art galleries, or for me, it might be just haiku, or whatever it might be, or self-publishing and being, I'm an adamant I'll always be an indie publisher. I'll never go back to having an agent or be being published traditionally.
Yes.
Well, you're preventing yourself from experiencing new ways of connecting and broadening with your audience, right? So
I completely agree.
I think that, say, a painter like yourself, illustrating a children's book. Well, maybe it's not going to be your full-on jam, but there's a whimsy, and there are a number of characteristics to that painting, elements and dreamscapes, that I think, I can see some really cool illustrative bridges to illustrating a children's book or what have you. And then we go through these things kind of like a heads-up display. I have these options that I could pursue. Which ones really speak to me? Which ones maybe am I a little afraid of because I don't understand it? How do I sort of balance? It's strategy and tactics. And managing those two might be one of the biggest, if not the biggest challenge while overcoming inertia too, to being an entrepreneur, which is what a living artist is, because you are the company, PMS Artwork. I am Lee Hudspeth. Call it the authentic brand, the fellow human being who wants to push creativity out into the world. Whatever the business slogan is, we're trying to connect with an audience. And literary, the visual arts, music, I think they tie together and kind of get embedded within each other for each individual artist, right?
Completely. Well, and for me, I know every single one of my paintings, there's not one piece that I have that was not inspired by either music or film or literature. It's all baked into there.
I think Bob Dylan has famously said, I really can't explain these songs or where they come from. I like this whole metacognition thing. We talked about this, where you're paying attention. Not always. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's interesting, and it's a way to be self-aware. And so I don't mind paying attention to, where's this idea coming from? This poem about the crescent moon. I know the experience, but then all these other things come in, and social commentary. I like looking at that and seeing where that comes from. And for writers or painters or any creatives out there listening, I find that then also generates and inspires new ideas. Like, how did I come up with this poem? Oh, well, there's an angle I haven't thought about. Let me juxtapose this new concept and map it onto an imagistic, description of something in nature, right? So,
well, not only that, maybe it gives you a little bit of a window into yourself and your own humanity, how you work, and maybe you can develop yourself in the process a bit too.
Well, and I think so. And yes, I've got, my own internalized thoughts and feelings, and then my observations of the world around me. And I think poetry is a melding of the two, and then an expression of what I've experienced and how I've metabolized it, right? And that's, I think, a big part of why I'm so into poetry right now, as opposed to fiction. I do want to get back into writing fiction, short stories and longer form, but I just love the lyricism and the resonating character. You play a big open chord with some resonating strings on a guitar, and it just floats and kind of fills the room. Okay, that's a very haiku-esque phenomenon, but I like to try and see if a non-haiku poem can somehow exhibit some of those same properties. Resonate, chime, there's the prosody, the meter, the choice to rhyme or not, the words, even the punctuation.
A little bit of riffing, I'm getting a little thrown in.
Yes, maybe I'm getting a little too wonky here, but
no, not at all.
I think that stuff is really intriguing to me. And if you're not willing to think about your own process, I think a lot of that stuff is just going to pass you by. Yeah. And I think there's a false meme out there that inspiration only comes from some exogenous muse that randomly lands on your shoulder, whether you're super sad or super excited, or someone almost runs you over in the crosswalk and you have an epiphany. Those are cool moments to use as the genesis for a poem or a story or a painting, right? But I also think there's a lot to be said for just thinking about, let's say the theme is fatherhood, just think about it, dwell on it, meditate on it, and then write about it. So,
and also, if you're always waiting for the muse to strike, how often are you actually going to be inspired, right?
Absolutely true.
You said this place was steps from the water.
We just haven't found the steps yet.
How much did we save?
Enough.
Enough to get lost?
Or you could book a stay with Hilton.
Welcome to your oceanfront room, just steps from the water.
The Hilton sale is on now. Book on Hilton.com or the Hilton app and save up to 20% to get the stay you expected. When you want savings, not surprises, it matters where you stay. Hilton, for the stay.
Some things are impossible to miss, like an elephant in the room, or a bull in a china shop, or this season's amazing offers, brought to you by PayPal. Discover offers from hundreds of brands like Viator, Allbirds, and Tory Burch right in the PayPal app. Save an offer before you check out with PayPal and earn unlimited rewards. Download the PayPal app to get started. Terms and exclusions apply. See paypal.com/rewards terms.
You're kind of pigeonholed into this category. So I like to bring in people from all over too, because I think everybody is creative on some level, but I think we learned that way. I think if you're so in your lane all the time, when I'm just focusing on art all the time, or I'm on Instagram, or I'm in galleries, I don't really feel like I'm expanding or I'm learning that much. So I'm always trying to watch movies and documentaries and read and listen to other people and have different types of friends. I think that's really important. So it sounds like your podcast is aligned with that. I also like that it's kind of like fulfills your mission statement a bit. It's one of those things where it's hard. I was looking over all of your work that you've done, and it's a pretty broad spectrum of things that you've accomplished in your career, but it feels like almost the podcast synthesizes that a little bit. And because I was going to ask you, is it hard to kind of convey your brand with all these things that you do?
Yeah, I probably am not conveying the brand as well as I could if I was more hyper focused and, just focused on the brand. I don't really care enough about that. Everything that I'm doing is something that I am happy to be doing, that I love to do, that I'm looking at my calendar and excited to be doing. So, that might mean that, the brand isn't as tightly focused, but that's just sort of who I am and what I'm, doing and having fun with. And, it seems to work for the most part, but it's a funny thing, when I first got started, I'm in this group called Strategic Coach, which is sort of a business group full of entrepreneurs. And, you once a quarter spend some time just really thinking about your thinking and sort of getting organized and planning. And when I first got in that group, I couldn't fathom how people had multiple businesses, how they had podcasts, how are you a CEO? And and then, you realize that there is a way, and it's actually not as hard as people think it is. That if you hire good people that share vision and values, and, that might be hard at first when resources are limited, but, with each person you hire, if they can do the job better than you can, it frees up some more capacity. And over time, and it does take time, I've been able to build a pretty good system where we're able to do a lot. And, frankly, I'm working less. It's just super organized, and it's, super supported by great people, and, it just works.
Yeah, it sounds like that is the journey with a lot of entrepreneurs and people who are expanding, is giving up a little control and surrendering a bit, right? I still have a problem with that. Like if I were to plan somebody to package my work and send it to another country, I still would be nitpicking and, getting involved in the process. But I think that's a great lesson for everybody. And to backtrack a little bit, I think I was giving you a compliment about the brand situation, because I think you not having just a 100% defined brand that you stick to is kind of your brand. I think that's the power of it. I think that's also one of those things with artists. We get pigeonholed as well to, this is your signature style, stick with this. But I think that is very limiting. And I think that's why I've always tried. I used to do pop surrealism. Now I do abstract art. I think we follow where our passion lies. And I think that's inspirational for people.
Yeah, well, appreciate you saying that. And I think there's something tricky there that can be hard, especially, for artists, but for me too, as an entrepreneur, when you become known for something, right? And that something is working and, it's paying you well, or there's people that are relying on it, right? There's all these things that happen. And as an artist, and I agree with you, I think we all are, creative, born to be creative, in some different way. It doesn't have to be in the arts, but I see myself, as an artist, just in the act of being creative, using my business as the example of probably my biggest creation. It's a tough thing to explore something else, right?
Yeah,
and
it is.
And yet, I think it's in our DNA to do that, and you have to honor it, or else you end up becoming, an artist that isn't happy or really enjoying the act of being creative. And that really, isn't very much in conflict with the reason you're doing it to begin with.
Yeah, and it's not very inspirational. I think people can feel that. I think it almost comes across as like, oh, it's lost its soul or its energy. It's the equivalent of, the athlete who's really good at what they do, and then the parent gets involved and gets so on them the whole time and tries to mold them, and then they just lose their passion for it.
It's a mashup, motherfuckers!
This has been the Living Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Your art and creative life on this planet is meaningful, so thank you for sharing it with me. If you like this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also leave me a positive review to show your support. This helps me to reach more people with the algorithmic magic and keep the show going strong. If you want to see more of what I do and check out the art that I create, you can visit my website at www.pmsartwork.com or follow me on social media everywhere at PMS Artwork. That's it for now. See you back here next time.